حلمنا نسخي حلم ورورتك عنكوتانا سخي نايما يتعامتك هلاوينا عب هلاوي خيوز مركوس عدنا متاعينا بآخيوز غلس.
Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to our special broadcast on Embassy Media on the occasion of International Women's Day. Tonight, I have a very special guest with me, Her Excellency Ms. Christine Umutoni, UN Residence Coordinator for Mauritius. Ms. Umutoni, among her various high-profile postings previously, she served as the UN Residence Coordinator, Humanitarian Coordinator, and UNDP Residence Representative in Asmara, Eritrea, since 2012 until 2017. Her main responsibilities included coordination of all UN agencies operational in Eritrea, coordinating UN humanitarian development work, and heading the UNDP country office. Her Excellency Christine Umutoni worked with the government of Rwanda in various capacity before 2005. She was the Rwandan ambassador to Uganda from 2002 until 2004, and to Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, European Union, and the Vatican based in Brussels from 2000 until 2002. Before her diplomatic assignments, she serves in the present office as an advisor on economic and social affairs in Rwanda. Good evening, Ms. Umutoni, and thank you for joining us tonight for our special broadcast on the occasion of International Women's Day. Before we start, what significance does this day have for you, Christine?
Thank you very much for inviting me. International Women's Day is so significant to me, but to everybody, because it's a time that everybody takes to reflect on the role of women in sometimes very tough situations or any situations, and to recognize how women, humble women, do tremendous or big things in life. So it's a moment to really reflect and remember those women, but also it shouldn't be only one day. It should be 365 days, 24/7, but we recognize that sometimes we set up a day for a special thinking about these things.
You, as a woman in politics and diplomacy, what challenges did you face, and how did you overcome those challenges, Christine?
Okay, in the same context as we do recognize ordinary women doing extraordinary things on such a day, I also consider myself as an ordinary woman, but who has maybe done a few extraordinary things along my journey. Many of you would know me. Of course, I talk now on Eritrea in my personal capacity because I last worked in Eritrea some time back. But in that personal capacity, I can tell you that many of you would know that I was born a refugee. And so I grew up struggling. I have told the story many times how I almost dropped out of school in primary school because of lack of school fees. And then I had to be bailed out by my teacher, but then made a resolve that my father would never struggle with school fees anymore. I'm going to work and get my own self scholarships. But since then, it has shaped my character. I refuse to be a victim. And I rather be a victor, or I choose to be a problem solver. So since then, I've said I'll go to school as a girl. And then, of course, I grew up, I realized that what does it mean to be a refugee? Why should I be a refugee? Where is my country? What stops me from having a country? That's how I joined student movements, first in welfare associations, students of associations, but later on in the movement to liberate my own country. So I became, in my own capacity, a freedom fighter, if I can call it, to try and find a homeland. And then, of course, I also participated in the struggles to stop the genocide in the times to reconstruct and rebuild my own country, and then to the international community supporting humanity in many countries, including Zimbabwe, Eritrea, and now Mauritius and Seychelles, but also in many other posters you've seen it. So I should say that to young women listening, it's never an easy journey, but all our problems, all the challenges that young people might be facing, just to know that they are temporary. You just have to build your resilience, and then to know that also leadership is everybody can be a leader. You have to choose what you want to advocate for. You can choose a cause, you know, and leadership is not tomorrow, it's today. I was a leader at 19 when I'm telling you that in our struggles, I was 19. So leadership is not for only old, it's also for the young. It's not for tomorrow, it's also for today. I think those are the main messages.
I mean, Christine, we consider you in Eritrea as a friend, as a freedom fighter, as a woman, because we have 30% of EPLF freedom fighters were females, and I know that you were very, very close to a lot of Eritrean during your time in Asmara. What advice would you give to young girls and professionals in pursuit of their educations and careers, Christine?
Actually spent about 5 years in Eritrea, so I have lots of memories. And all I can say is that from the Eritrean context, I saw very strong women, both the old generation and the young generation. I believe it is the struggles that the countries has gone through that has shaped them. Most of them, when we discussed, they told me that when during their own struggle for self-determination to gain a nation, to them it was a double struggle. And it shaped them both liberating themselves as women, emancipation, and also liberating a country. In so doing, it's like they got double benefit, and it strengthened them in character. I remember going to some of the villages and was impressed by this woman who were trying to do a dam, and the old woman came, started fetching water, putting her own stone on the dam, and when asked, she was saying that this is our own project. It's our own community. And to me, it adds value and it means a lot if I do it myself, whether I am old or young. So I saw a lot of that determination. My own observation is that women involvement, or when you look on the surface, and because we keep looking at numbers of women in parliament, on government, or whatever to determine women in leadership, in Eritrea, it was like bottom up. You saw more women leaders in communities than you saw in parliament. We have women in parliament, we have women in government. It's not 50-50. But actually, when you go to communities, you see women leaders in every field, and you see women leading in many committees at the local level. So it looks like you have to, if you want to look in the typical way of how many members of parliament, you may not appreciate. But because I worked so much in communities, I engaged while we were doing dams in the villages or agricultural projects or different communities, I observed the power of women at that level. And so you asked about how to advise young girls. First of all, to everybody, for your own country, you must have that level of patriotism. You must love your country and want to contribute to your country. But also looking through the struggles to tell the girls that, again, it's not an easy ride. Not only for girls, for everybody. It's not an easy ride. You're not going to raise to the top. You will not be a resident coordinator tomorrow. You know, you have to work hard for it. But also to say that challenges happen in life. I grew up as a refugee. It was a hurdle. I could have given up. I could have said, I'm a second-hand citizen. There were so many moments when I almost gave up. You know, when I was at university, my parents had tried to get out of the camp and do work. And then a new regime came and sent every Rwandese back to the camp. For a whole year, I didn't know where my parents were. I asked for the university warden to keep me. I had to go to UNHCR and go around looking for where my parents are. And I found them in a makeshift tent. I went back without any pocket money or anything. At that moment, I could have just given up. But you don't give up, you keep resilient. And in many times, I was rejected because I'm a refugee or second-hand citizen. Nobody would want to give me a professional course if I needed it, and I pushed. Every time I had to push, a second, a third, a fourth time until I'm accepted. So I think through that kind of life, I also learned to understand that challenges could be there. They shouldn't crush you. They should not diminish you. I learned to understand inside every human being we are like a diamond, you know. You may have so many things covering that diamond, so many problems, that when you scratch down on the surface, you still have that diamond in you. So I think for most young people, keep your head up and push further. I know that also these days, even if we talk about empowering women, it will never come on a silver plate. You always have to go to interviews for your jobs. So you still have to work hard to achieve that. But it's achievable, and I'm a living.
مرغاقي حيلنا يونباحلو اتمتايسي حلالنا ندخي على بيننا اتمتايسي هاجرنا ومرعات عيننا عدينا نملك بزبر دمسي عدينا نملك.
Christine, I mean, as a diplomat, as a freedom fighter, as an African, and as a sister to so many young African, how did you find your posting in Eritrea, and what was the level of involvement of women in all levels of the governance? I mean, you just mentioned, but can you highlight it a little bit more deeper?
Yeah, I think I talked about women leadership. Women, I mean, generally, we are not where we have 50-50, you know, equality. It's not only keep advocating for women, but I should say that when if you want me to talk about Eritrea, we even have National Union of Eritrean Women, which is a dedicated body on the issue of women. For me, having structures that are dedicated to follow up on issues of gender equality and women empowerment is a huge step. We understood from what we were being educated by the National Union of Eritrean Women that it's a body that started long ago, that has groomed many young people into character, that has helped them discover themselves and go through the struggles that they had to go through. So for me, already that is an indication of a society that is recognizing the place of women and what they do. I visited a number of their projects in the rural villages, and as I said, I admired the fact that it is community-based, because this is the best way you can measure impact of involvement of women. You know, it is okay also to say you have so many women ministers, and I know they are there in prayer, but for me, the biggest strength that measured the role of women, the involvement of women, the participation of women, is seeing them in the communities involved in various projects, be it in community engagement or income generating activities, different things in nutrition, in health. You know, if we talked about at that time achieving SDGs on health, it's because women were there to check for their maternal health care. You know, they took their children for vaccination when they were told to. They fed their children when there was a program. So this is a huge power that is very difficult for me to measure and tell you, because in most cases, the reason we see that women stay behind is that we forget this level, the community level of engagement. And when we say women are 50% of the population, and the majority of the population in the community is in the communities. So if you leave them behind, then you're leaving behind the whole country. But if you involve women, they say you educate a women and you educate a community. So I think for me, continuing to invest in women's organization, women's project, promoting them into leadership in the economy, in the sector, in education, and I saw many young girls going, and other courses that promote women. I also saw that at the primary level, actually, they're even more than boys. So me, those are the indicators based on human development that show that there was progress. But of course, as usual, and as everybody advocates, you always want to see more every year and more every year until we reach parity.
Christine, with all your experience as an African politician, diplomat, freedom fighter, are you planning to write a book, to learn, or in your opinion, how does gender equality impact the productivity and stability of the society in the continent, in Africa? What could we learn from all your experience and observations? And are you planning to write a book?
I think this is a challenge I should actually take on. And actually, my best theme would be like the role of women in liberation struggles and how that impacts their position or their involvement in societies after that, and how that shows that if they prove themselves during the struggle, then they can do it. And going through the struggle has sharpened them or even strengthened them further, but also has shown their brothers that they fought alongside with that they are worth they are. It's not, you're not giving them anything on the silver plate. They fought as much as they fought for it, and they proved their worth. So there is a lot to learn for societies that went through liberation struggles, because you tested things in the field, and afterwards it's easy to put these in your policies, to create association, that the National Union of Eritrean Women and others similar, to create ministries of women, because you have seen it in practice. If I would say more, I mean, really, it's been years of advocacy for gender equality, and my grandmother, their grandmother, and societies in America and Europe and Africa, it's a theme that never ends. But I think now we need to work more on changing the thinking. It's about the thinking. That's why advocacy is always important, because we have some sort of unconscious bias. Sometimes people have unconscious bias that you have to dig deeper to really inculcate the culture of equal opportunity, equal rights, and to feel that it's not a favor that people are doing to women, but it is actually a favor doing to society. I think it is common sense that if you have the population and you lose 50% of that population, you're losing 50% of the economy, you're losing 50% of development, you are losing 50% of everything that you want to do. So I think it should just be a matter of common sense by now, but as we know, the struggle continues because not everybody understands these things at the same time. But I think by putting up structures, in some countries, they have tried to do quotas, for leadership. In business, you must have more than 30% on boards of business, you must have more than 30% in parliament, in government, you must have 30% on the committees, you must, that is something we have to continue. But at the same time, we have to keep sort of the campaign and the advocacy, both in the leadership, but also in the communities and among the women themselves, because sometimes the women, the traditions and the cultures have made them, give up. But this is where we have to know that we have to go away with the traditions and the cultures that discriminate, that leave people behind. We are now talking about the SDGs. SDG 5 is about gender equality, and we are talking about leaving no one behind. We have to put it in our policies, in our advocate for that. So definitely, I think there will never be enough books because every experience is unique. And definitely my own experience is unique in its own way, but it's also similar to so many other women who have struggled and who have made it. For me, my story is about refusing to be a victim and rather be a victor. Refusing to wait for to find solution for me and to be part of the solution. This is impossible. My main motto, whenever I was, there's nothing impossible. We can do it. We can do it. Every time I visited communities or refugee camps, so everybody, we talk and discuss and say, you have to try. You have what it takes. So go for it.
Yeah. Well, Christine, we will wait for your beautiful book because you have a very interesting story to share. Finally, before we ending this interview with you, it's an honor to have you here on Embassy Media. Final word, or what lesson can other countries learn from Eritrea in regards to gender equality with all your experience during your stay in Eritrea, Christine?
I think, I think I've already said some of the things, but maybe before I come to Eritrea, to really line us fighting COVID. We know that all societies have been hit by COVID, but we know women health workers, women who have been working in communities, women working in homes, women working in leadership in so different many ways, who have been at the forefront of it. So for me, I take off my hat for these women. It's been a tough struggle. But coming back to your question about what we could learn, the main thing that I picked, one of them is fighting gender genital mutilation. There was a specific law that was fighting that. That law was being implemented, and I remember that at that time UNFPA had put out a study which shows that the younger ones are now not going through that, because at the community level there had been a lot of campaign. There were committees made up of opinion leaders, religious leaders, all of them campaigning against that. This is one form of gender-based violence, and to me, it is a huge step to deal with such kind of thing. But another thing, as I said, was when we were analyzing achieving the SDGs on health, we saw the reason that Eritrea was achieving the SDGs on health is because women were responsive. Women would ensure their own maternal health when they were during the maternity. Women are going through vaccination of their children when there was the need to do that. Women were really alert on issues health. And because of that, we saw a big number and a big shift in maternal health, in child health, and stuff like that. But another thing is their resilience, their resilience in many ways. I remember there were times there were issues, challenges in the economy, but it is the informal sector. Most of them were being led by women, and the economy kept on going. I met so many women in trade coming from here, even old women. I met old women in Dubai, going, and I say, how did this old woman manage to do that? But you would see them sustaining their families. But also women in leadership, as I already said, I interacted a lot with the National a Women's Symposium and invited community projects that we were doing, either as governors or as ministers in different fora, or as businesswomen in their own right, owning restaurants, owning different places. And to me, they showed a big level of resilience. So I think through all the challenges that the country went through, you can give it to women for having been part of the link sustaining societies. They feed children, they take children to school, they do formal and informal sector. They are the link. So to me, I saw a lot of resilience, and not only among the old women, but also among the young people, because I interacted with quite a number of people. And there was quite still a lot to learn about how fighters who brought the country to liberation, that always remained, and we were always shown pictures and history that has been kept at the National Union of Eritrean Women, and there is a lot to learn. I'm hoping that the Eritrean women themselves are writing many more books for the future generation to learn from that, but also that they are impacting that knowledge and that resilience to the youngsters.
Christine Umutoni, it's an honor again to have you here on Embassy Media. Eritrea is, the National Union of Eritrea Women are really celebrating the 8th of March worldwide under the theme Eritrea Women, Pillar of Resilience and Development. And Christine, as a sister, as a diplomat, as a freedom fighter, as a very close friend of the people and government of Eritrea. I really thank you on behalf of Embassy Media. Greetings to Mauritius, and we hope to see you very soon after this pandemic.
Thank you very much again for this episode. I think it's really a huge contribution to the theme this year, which says women in leadership and how do we deal with the post-COVID, but also to always bring out that gender equality, it means stability, is synonymous to development, and again, we can think of emancipation, or we cannot think of the development of any society behind half of its population, half of the population which is capable, which can do it. Therefore, thank you very much for promoting this kind of conversation. And once again, thank you for having me online. I speak in my personal capacity as a woman who has gone through lots of troubles growing up, but also who has shown that all is possible with determination and courage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Greetings to Mauritius. My guest speaker here tonight on Embassy Media was Her Excellency Christine Umutoni, UN Residence Coordinator for Mauritius. Until next time, good night.